Countering heroes is quite a basic concept in Overwatch, so basic that it is actually quite easy to make a video highlighting which heroes, in theory, are supposed to counter others. The art of working around your counter, avoiding them or focusing them first and foremost to stop them from trying to shut you down, I would differentiate players who are just okay on a hero from those who are actually good on them. The problem is that hero countering is not as black and white as I would like it to be. Hero buffs and nerfs as also meta changes shape people's opinions on what is an actually effective counter for any given hero. With those changes also comes a lot of bias and misconception, as I have noticed in the comment section of my own videos, so I'd like to clear some of those up. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's clear things up right off the bat. Every division has its own meta to a certain extent. Saying something works out in silver does not mean it would also work out in diamond. Tactics that I could suggest based on my experience of them working in masters doesn't mean that it's any useful for you guys out there who are on platinum. Reason being that, obviously, we have strongly varying skill levels in each division. The difference between a masters player and a gold player is not aim alone. I mean, for crying out loud, I get to masters without even having great aim. We're talking about basic concepts such as regrouping, staggering, ult economy, and effective hero comms, but also individual players not quite grasping onto the concept of the heroes they chose. Something I had multiple people point out in one of my more recent videos was that apparently Zarya is not a counter to D.Va. Obviously, my first reaction was, in which universe does Zarya not counter D.Va? And then I realized, in the universe in which people play differently from what I'm used to. A common misconception is that only because an individual player manages to work around their counters, or because they have never encountered an enemy who's actually competent on their counter, that means that this hero is no longer considered a viable counter. Holy shit, that's a lot of counters in a single sentence. Let's take Zarya versus D.Va as an example. People have pointed out that in a 1v1 scenario, D.Va would trash on Zarya thanks to her buff and movement speed while firing. Obviously, that's right. The moment Zarya pops her bubble, D.Va simply stops firing. Her 600 HP are more than enough to survive a low charge attack for a few seconds, after which she could simply fire back and melt the Russian lady. That tells me more about the players that you are up against and the position of this hero in our current meta. Zarya is a teamfight brawler. Her strength is keeping her team alive in a close-up, in-your-face kind of fight, while she will be able to reliably get charged, thus getting stronger the longer the fight lasts. A Zarya that engages a D.Va in a 1v1 situation on low charge simply tells me that this Zarya is not playing their hero right. Zarya and D.Va both are currently effective teamfight brawlers. Sure, D.Va functions as a flanker and can do that reasonably well, but on King of the Hill maps in particular, the ability to pop out her matrix that covers what feels like half the point allows her to keep her team alive while they trash on the enemies. However, if the enemies are running a Zarya, she won't give the slightest fuck about that matrix. Again, a decent Zarya player will easily get high charge during a teamfight, so in a coordinated teamfight, Zarya would simply laugh at D.Va's puny matrix and punch her out of her mech before she could say easy mode. And even when we talk about D.Va and her role as a flanker slash harasser, what is she gonna do? If she dies for supports without her team, she'll simply get focused by the entirety of the enemy team and lose her mech very quickly. If D.Va dives in while her team engages, we're back to a teamfight situation where Zarya is well capable of getting high charge reliably, in which case D.Va's matrix will simply not help her again. But all of that comes from my own experience. Admittingly, those circumstances are likely giving the Zarya more credit than the D.Va. If countering D.Va was as easy as I make it out to be in this video, then she wouldn't be as prominent in our current meta. I am aware of that. And obviously there are a million and two circumstances we all can list where a fight can go favorably for either of those parties, but all that doesn't change the fact that Zarya by design is an effective counter to D.Va. It's player performance and the nature of each individual scenario that ultimately tells us who will be the victor for each respectable engagement. And that's a tricky thing when talking about counters, isn't it? Because a lot of us are playing in different divisions where we meet different players of varying skill levels and also encounter various different comps. My own experience is that a good Zarya will trash on a D.Va in most circumstances, hence you hear me talking about that in a very biased manner in this regard. Some people in the comment section made entirely different experiences, hence what they say is biased in an entirely different way. Bias is not a bad thing per se, in fact it is quite unavoidable. What's important for us is to communicate our bias so people know where we're coming from and not state something as a definitive truth unless we can back that up. Which in the case of D.Va, any hero that uses weapons that can't be blocked by her matrix are considered effective counters to lesser or greater extent. When I talk about counters, I'm not expecting the players in question to be incompetent, as some people seemingly do in the comment section, and you should try to keep that in mind. Talking about counters in general, Force made a video quite a while ago highlighting basic counters in Overwatch. Those counters are simply based on character design, disregarding individual skill. I rewatched the video, and while it is very old, most of the things he says are still accurate. I mean, it comes to show how few people knew how to play Zarya effectively, as he highlights Junkrat and Pharah as effective counters to her. So take that with a grain of salt and remember that those are counters based on hero design, again keeping individual skill out of the equation. At any rate, I still suggest you watch this video if you're new to the game and don't know basic counters. Link to Force's video can be found in the description below. For everyone else who's been around for a while, as mentioned in the beginning, counters are not as simple as we want them to be. In teams that show any resemblance of coordination, 1v1 1v1 engagements are not very common. What usually matters more than which hero beats who in a 1v1 is how the entirety of the team handles particular heroes that give them trouble. As mentioned above, if we were to encounter a D.Va that blocks the majority of our damage while trying to pick off supports, it is obvious that she is a high priority target to us. The team consists of more than just Zarya as a sole counter. If you have 4 to 6 people all firing at D.Va while 1 or 2 are not even affected by the matrix, she's countered. She doesn't have a 360-degree shield and her matrix has a cooldown as well. If she's not being focused by anyone, including your Zarya, that obviously means that she's going to be extremely effective. When talking about higher levels of play, it is very important how the entire team handles problematic situations. When I've played in Platinum, yes, I heard the complaints. The problem is that people are way too focused on their individual performance. You don't have to pick hero counters to each enemy you see and then expect each individual player to counter the enemies one by one. What's far more effective is having multiple players focus on one enemy that gives them trouble to kill them as quickly as possible. That gives you a massive advantage in an upcoming teamfight as well. And that is exactly what I would like to believe is the true way, but I know from my own experience that the lower my rank was, the less willing people were to actually coordinate and work together. I know how big the focus on individual performances. You will always hear differing opinions and experiences, and it's hard to tell them they're wrong. I mean, if somebody tells you, I played my way up from gold into mid-platinum and have never been countered on Pharah, then that's either their experience or they're full of shit. It's just important for us to keep in mind that everyone has those different experiences, and we shouldn't go around telling them what they're supposed to do disregarding their division. Again, your gold tier Pharah carry might not work for someone in diamond, depending on how good or bad they are on that hero, and how good or bad the enemies are on their counters. That's why I've been having such immense trouble with writing up more guides. I don't necessarily want to give you guys a how-to on things that worked for me, because according to the comment section, most people who watch me are not in Masters, and a lot of you don't even play on PC, which is why it'd be really great to hear from you guys if you want me to make a guide on anything in particular that can be universally adapted, like my guide on effective communication. Though that again does not really count for console players, I guess. At the end of the day, if what you're doing helps you rank up, go for it, but expect others to do the same. We all encounter different players on different ranks throughout our ranked experience, so it's hard to find a definitive truth for a bunch of things. Just remember that when a person makes a video talking about things and he does not explicitly tell you where he takes his information from, like for example Reddit, it's very likely that he's talking about his own experiences, as I think should be obvious. I mean, I could just tell you about the games I had with an Attack, Torp, and Symmetra and how we absolutely trashed our enemies in Masters, but those are just 2 games and are neither reflective of my own experiences as a whole, nor is it reflective of most other people's experiences. So let's just try to be chill in the comments. At any rate, this is me done for the day. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Do feel free to leave me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you guys next time.
Enemy